What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Fish the Moment. Today I'm out in my garage sweating my butt off because it's like 100 degrees outside, and I'm getting prepared for an offshore versus shallow challenge on Table Rock Lake with Randy. And I'm fishing offshore, and I set up a ton of rods before I go fishing just to make sure I have a bait set up for any potential situation I'll find myself fishing when it gets to the lake, because I have no idea what I'm going to be doing. Now, I thought it'd be interesting to show you guys some of the setups that I have and all the baits that I have rigged up, and just walk through each one of them. I think I have like 10 or 12 setups rigged up here, and just let you guys know how I prepare for a fishing day. And this is just basically me talking about all the different setups in a row, and so we're not going to be talking about electronics or graphing or anything like that, but hopefully you guys find this interesting and useful. So let's just jump straight into it and get to the first setup. So here's the first thing I have rigged up here, and I'm not doing this in any particular order. I just have all my rods randomly laid out here. But the first bait is a Necco Rig, and this is actually an offshore Necco Rig where basically I'm taking a Yamamoto 6.5-inch cut tail worm, and I'm rigging it with a O-ring, or a little rubber ring, and I'm putting it with, I think this is a 1/0 Gamakatsu finesse Necco hook, or Necco hook, and I have an 1/8 ounce or maybe a 3/16 ounce nail weight in the tail of this worm. And basically what I'm doing with this bait is trying to fish it down there in that 10 to 20 foot range if I find some fish that are a little bit inactive. On Table Rock Lake, there's a lot of fishing pressure and a lot of boat pressure, and so I know that the finesse technique can sometimes save my butt when I'm out there, help me put a few fish in the boat. And so this is something I've been experimenting with a lot recently. I've caught some fish on it. I haven't really been that successful with it, but I know that it works really well in the Tennessee River and on other places around the country. So I'm gonna keep experimenting with this, see if I can catch some fish on it, and I might try some different worms, different baits, things like that. For now, that's what I'm going with, and I'm just rigging that on a 7'4" medium action quantum smoke rod with a quantum smoke reel. I think it's a size 30 reel with 20-pound braided line for my main line and an 8-pound fluorocarbon for my leader line. And so that's my first setup, kind of going finesse-y. And to kind of follow that up with another finesse approach, I have a Ned Rig, and this is actually a little bit heavier Ned Rig for, again, offshore fishing. And this is the Jewel Baits 1/4 ounce Ned head that has the weed guard, which I really like. And then this is a Daiwa, I think it's called a Necco worm or something like that. I'll link all these baits in the description, guys, so you can find them. But it's just like a 4-inch little kind of Necco style worm with a bulbous tail. It's a little bit bigger than your traditional Necco worms. I actually have another one just laying on deck of the boat that I was trying earlier. That's the Missile Baits Ned Bomb. But I feel like when I'm going offshore, I want a little bit bigger profile. I don't know if that is accurate or not. I still have to test out a lot of these finesse style baits. I'm not a finesse expert by any means offshore, and so I want to get better at that. So you can see my first couple setups here are finesse techniques, because I still want to improve my offshore game. And I know that when I get around a lot of pressured fish, bait like a Ned Rig or the Necco Rig, stuff like that, that's going to produce some extra fish for me, and I need to get more comfortable with them. And so this is one rig I have here, and I'm just rigging that up on a 7'2" medium moderate action Jenko fishing gambler spinning rod. This is a really nice offshore fishing rod. It actually casts these a little bit heavier finesse baits really well. It loads up really well, so I would recommend checking out these Gambler Jenko fishing spinning rods. I'm just pairing that with a super old Quantum Energy tour edition reel, and actually looks like I need to change up the line here because I have a backlash there. That's something I need to change. And I just put that on, I think, 6-pound fluorocarbon. So I need to re-rig this so I'm not dealing with a bird's nest. I bird's nest too, guys. It's actually good I did this video, so I'm not going out unprepared. So that's that. Next up, we're gonna switch over to some of my crankbaits. Again, this is not really in a particular order, but one thing I like to throw a lot this time of year on Table Rock, especially when these fish get a lot deeper, is Striking 10XD. It's a really big bodied crankbait. It's great when you get some windy days, when there's current flowing, and those fish get in offshore ledges and brush piles in that 20 to 25 foot zone. I'm just throwing it in this kind of white splatterback color, and I upgrade the stock treble hooks to, I think they're size or number 2 Gamakatsu, or maybe they're Mustad EWGs, I'm not exactly sure. I think they might be Mustad EWGs on there. And just a Striking 10XD, I have that on the 13 Fishing Krankenstein Envy bait casting rod, 7'11" moderate action. And I'm just putting that on a super old Quantum Tour KVD crankbait reel, 5.3 to 1. And I really like this really long rod, 7 foot 11 inch moderate for these big deep diving crankbaits. And I don't catch a ton of fish on a 10XD here in Arkansas. There's not a lot of water that sets up for it, but I have caught some big ones in the past down in Texas, and I've caught them on Table Rock on it as well. And so definitely a good bait to try in certain situations. Next up, we have the Strike King 6XD crankbaits, and you guys know how much I love throwing my 6XD, and this is just a sexy shad version with Gamakatsu EWG hooks number 2, and I've upgraded that, and basically just throwing that on a 7'6" medium heavy action Veritas winch bait casting rod. This is probably discontinued at this point, it's very, very old. Putting that with a Abu Garcia Black Max winch reel, 59 bucks, that's what I'm talking about. And just putting that with 10-pound monofilament Berkeley Big Game. And yeah, keeping it pretty simple, not an expensive rod or expensive reel or expensive bait or expensive line. Probably the most bougie thing on this crankbait is the hooks. And so that's pretty much it. Just tried and true deep diving crankbait. Probably will find them. If I can catch them on it, I'll probably find some good ones. And then I've been trying some new medium diving crankbaits because I've always had trouble with some of the striking lineup in terms of castability on their 10 to 12 foot diving crankbaits. And so I've been working with Randy Block a lot recently, and he's been getting me hooked up with some Megabass baits. And I really like this Megabass Deep X 300 crankbait. It has kind of a unique shape for crankbaits in this kind of size and style, and it casts so well for a bait that dives in that 8 to 12 foot range. It also digs really well. This bill is actually very long, and it will keep it free from rocks and hang-ups really nice. And so I've been throwing this a lot recently actually to get some really good results, and I want to keep experimenting with these Megabass crankbaits and see if there's some advantages between a little bit higher dollar crankbait and then your standard Strike King like 6XD or your $5 to $8 crankbaits, because I feel like a lot of guys are throwing these crankbaits here just because they're on the price a little bit less expensive than other crankbaits on the market. But maybe these fish are getting conditioned, especially offshore, to guys always throwing a 6XD Series 5 crankbait 10XD. So maybe going to some of these Megabass crankbaits might be able to generate more bites for me. And if it does, if it puts 3 or 4 more extra fish in the boat, it's definitely worth paying a little bit extra for these baits, especially for these very situational baits like this. So gonna keep experimenting. This is the exact same setup I was throwing the 6XD on, just a 7'6" Veritas winch, medium heavy rod, Abu Garcia winch reel, Black Max winch reel, 59 bucks, and then 10-pound monofilaments. So that's that. Next up, we have a bait and a rod that you have seen a lot recently, which is the Fish the Moment Jewel Baits Offshore Jig. This is the 5/8 ounce jig that I designed for Jewel Baits in the peanut butter and jelly color, putting that with the Strike King Rage Craw on the back. And you guys have probably heard enough about this jig already. Don't need to really get into it, but catching a ton of fish on this bait, and I'm sure I'll catch them on Table Rock when I go there as well, because I honestly have not gone one trip in the last 2 months where I haven't caught a fish on this jig. It's been my #1 producer by far and #1 confidence bait right now for sure. And I'm just putting that with 17-pound Seagar and VizX fluorocarbon, the 7'4" heavy action Quantum Smoke S3 rod, and Abu Garcia Black Max reel, and that's pretty much it. And you'll see a lot more Black Maxes here coming up in a second because I've been throwing a lot of them recently. But really quick guys, if you enjoy this video and want to support more content from Fish the Moment, one easy and free way to do that is by going to my website, fishthemoment.com, then going to the Support Fish the Moment tab at the top of the screen. This will take you to a page with a couple different ways to support my channel, and one of those is my Tackle Warehouse affiliate link. All you have to do is click on this link, it'll take you straight to Tackle Warehouse, and then if you check out on Tackle Warehouse using that link, I'll get a small percentage of the profits from any purchases you make. And the way this works basically is that there's a little tag at the end of the Tackle Warehouse URL, !from = Fish the Moment, and anytime you use that link, they'll know that I sent you to the website. And so one way to make sure you always use this link when you shop at Tackle Warehouse is just to bookmark the page and add that to your bookmarks bar. That way, anytime you go to Tackle Warehouse from that bookmark link, you'll be taken straight to Tackle Warehouse using my link, and I'll always get credit for all your purchases. So if you do like the content on my YouTube channel and want to support me further, this is a really easy and free way to do it, and I really appreciate you guys taking a few minutes to do that. Next up, got a spoon. I love a Flutter Spoon in the summertime for those suspended bass. A lot of those crankbaits and jigs and stuff are for those bass that are on the bottom, maybe around cover. But when you get some suspended bass, you always want to make sure you have like a flutter spoon, a swim bait, and a few other baits we're going to talk about. And so this is my number one go-to to try to get those inactive suspended bass to bite. Striking Sexy Spoon. This is the 5.5-inch size. I put a little barrel swivel on the front, upgrade the stock treble hook to a size 2 Gamakatsu EWG hook, and then just putting on a very old 7'4" heavy action Quantum Tour Edition PT rod. It's like 12 years old, and a Quantum Tour Edition TE100 bait casting reel, also super old, like 10 years, 12 years old. And I'm putting, I think, 17-pound Seaguar and VizX fluorocarbon on that. So that's my spoon setup. It works very well for me, and I made a complete guide to offshore fishing with a flutter spoon recently, so check that out on my channel if you want to learn how to fish these. Next up is a bait that I've been experimenting with a little bit recently offshore. I haven't really caught anything on it, but I think I will at some point, and that's the discontinued Strike King Magnum Caffeine Shad. I've been meaning to learn how to fish this bait offshore and experiment with it in recent years, but I never really got around to it, and now they've already discontinued the bait. But it's basically this Magnum Fluke, and I have a very big number 7 or 7/0, okay, extra wide gap. I don't even know what brand hook this is, but it's a really big hook. And basically what I want to do with this giant fluke is see if I can get some of these fish that are maybe feeding on that flutter spoon or a big swim bait, but maybe are kind of getting conditioned to it. And I can throw this Magnum Fluke down there, let it sink down for 20-30 seconds, and find a retrieve that will get these fish to trigger on it. And then after that, I need to figure out how I'm going to find another bait to replace this one, because I don't have any other baits that I know of that will fit this bill, and I only have like 4 packs of these things. So either I have to make those last a very long time or do something, because if I start catching them on this bait, that's going to be a bummer. But I might try to start experimenting too with just another, like, you know, a 5-inch caffeine shad with different weighting. I don't know, I'm always trying to experiment, guys, with different types of offshore baits and different styles of baits. They're unique because, you know, you always have the standard baits like the ones I've been showing you now, but the holy grail is finding a bait that no one else is throwing offshore on your lake. That's how you a lot of times can catch some really, really big fish and catch a lot of numbers right behind other anglers. So experimenting with offshore baits is very, very important. Whew, I am sweating, guys. It is hot in this garage. I am hopefully going to get through these rods quickly. I only have like 4 more, which is good. Next setup I have here is a big swim bait, and this is something that I've been experimenting with a lot too, which is the Megabass Magdraft Freestyle swim bait on a jig head. And I've thrown a lot of hollow belly swim baits over the years, as well as just like your rib swim baits, like a Kitech, stuff like that, offshore. I've had mixed results on them, not that great. And so I thought that maybe trying to throw this Magdraft on a jig head offshore might get me some bigger bites, and even if I don't get the number of bites, might help me get a big quality fish in the boat if I can get the right ones to eat it. I still have not figured out the exact situation to throw this in yet, which fish need to, you know, how the fish need to be positioned, what types of water clarities, lakes, all that stuff to throw this on. But I'm gonna keep it tied on just to learn how this works. And I'm just throwing a 3/4 ounce true bass swim bait head, and I really like the look of this Magdraft on the back of this big jig head, and I'm gonna try to fish this down that, you know, 15 to 30 foot range to see if I can get some bites. I'm just putting that on a 7'6" heavy action Quantum Smoke S3 rod, Abu Garcia Black Max reel, 39 bucks, and 15-pound Seaguar and VizX fluorocarbon. Next up is my new favorite finesse bait, which is kicking butt for me this summer, and that is a black shaky head worm. Now, I've been using the Zoom trick worm for most of the summer, but I recently got these all black Yamamoto cut tail 6-inch worms, and they look awesome. And I wanted to try something a little bit different from that regular trick worm and go to this cut worm, or this cut tail worm from Yamamoto. It has a little bit thicker profile, a thinner tail. I'm thinking this may even get me a few bigger bites, but also keep the numbers up as well. And I'm gonna keep experimenting with different types of shaky head worms along with the trick worm. And if I just can't catch them on this as well, I'll go back to the trick worm, no problem. I'm throwing that on an Owner Ultimate Shaky Head jig head as a 5/0 hook, 3/8 ounce shaky head. Works really well with this, you know, 6-inch worm. And I'm just pairing that with a 7'2" medium heavy action Quantum Smoke S3 rod, 12-pound fluorocarbon line, Black Max reel. And this bait's been awesome for me to follow up the football jig and just throw it in areas where I feel like the fish are really pressured and getting a lot of fishing pressure. And that black shaky head has been kicking butt for me. You'll see it in a lot of my videos coming up. Next up, we have one of my favorite baits of all time, which is a 1/2 ounce hair jig. And you guys know how much I love a hair jig. I throw it in a lot of my videos. I always have it tied on, and it always seems to produce, whether it's smallmouth, spotted bass, or largemouth. And I've talked about the setup for this bait a lot. I have a complete guide to hair jig fishing if you want to check that out. And I'm not going to talk about this too much just because I always talk about it in my videos. And this is just on a 7'2" medium heavy action Quantum Smoke S3 rod with Abu Garcia Black Max reel, 12-pound Seaguar and Vizex fluorocarbon. And then my last setup here, which is now I think my 12th rod, is a Dropshot. This is the last thing I have tied on. It's kind of my, fourth finesse-y option. And I just put a 1/4 ounce Dropshot weight with a VMC Necco Rig hook, just the number 2, I believe. And then I wacky rig a Aaron's Magic, or I don't know if that's a color, but it's just like kind of pink and white robo worm, 6-inch straight tail robo worm. I'll wacky rig it, and putting that on a very old Quantum Tour Edition Mike Worm Signature Series Dropshot rod with the old Tennessee grip, where I actually have to like tape up the reel to the rod. I thought that was cool a while back and like very unique, and now I'm kind of annoyed by it. I don't really like taping up my reels to the rod because it makes it hard to switch out reels and stuff like that, but that's what I have, and I don't have that many spinning rods, so I'm just working with what I have. And just throwing that on a Tour PT Quantum spinning reel, super old, like a lot of my stuff that's not an Abu Garcia Black Max. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the Dropshot. I usually keep like a 1 to 18-inch leader, and putting it with 6-pound fluorocarbon main line with 10-pound braided line, or 10-pound braided line main line with a 6-pound fluorocarbon leader. And so those are the rods I have rigged up. There's a lot of other baits I've been experimenting with recently in addition to these. A few things I've been trying to mess around with are some scrounger heads, and not been catching them very well on the scrounger head. I don't know why. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I keep missing a bunch of fish, and I literally can throw the scrounger head in there, miss like 3 fish, then pull out like a football jig or a regular swim bait or whatever and catch him. So I don't know what it is about these Arkansas bass and this scrounger head, but I know it works on Tennessee River. I know how to throw it. I've talked to the guys who make this Jenko fishing tremor head and the tremor shad, and that's what this is, the Jenko fishing one. I've talked to him how to fish it. I know what I'm doing with it. I just can't get him to bite it. It's very, very weird. But there's that. I've got some kind of, I got biffle bugs I've been throwing, just a biffle hard head with a biffle bug on the back. Just a bunch of other baits. So I have a lot of other stuff that I can audible to, but that's kind of what I'm starting my day with at least. And if we kind of take a inventory of everything, we have, let's see here, we have the Dropshot, shaky head, Ned Rig, Necco Rig. That is 4 finesse rods, so I can rotate those in if I feel like I found a school of fish that's getting pressured by their anglers or just isn't biting. I have 3 deep diving crankbaits for different depths. I have my Flutter Spoon, my hair jig, and my big swim bait for suspended fish. And then I have my football jig for my fish that are on the bottom. Now, you might be wondering why I don't have like a 10-inch worm tied on, or a Magnum shaky head, or a Carolina rig. As you can tell, there's a lot of different baits to throw, and I only have 12 rods rigged up, so I basically have just gone with this, and then if I need something else, I can always tie it on. But this is what I have confidence in going out, and this is what I always feel like will give me the best chance to catch fish, and so that's what I'm going with. And so there are other baits that obviously I will tie on, as I've said, but for now, that's what I'm going with, and hopefully it will work out on Table Rock, and you guys will see the results once we get out there. So I am literally sweating buckets right now, and this shirt is very hot, and so I'm going to go inside and cool down. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. And if you guys like this type of content where I just sit down, talk about stuff, let me know. I mean, normally I like to put a lot of graphics and me fishing and stuff like that on the lakes. I feel like that's the content that is the most beneficial for you. But if you want more content like this literally took me 20 minutes to sit down and do, and it's gonna take me about 20 minutes to edit it and post it, so I can put a lot of these videos if you guys like them. And so just let me know. And other than that, thanks for checking out the videos, and I'll see y'all in the next one.